written an article and I deleted it. I'm somewhat annoyed about that. But unfortunately, I have to document my intellectual property. So, the long and the short of it is I realized, and it's possibly because of a aphasia. So within neuroscience, people who are left-handed sometimes access your memories are stored in different parts of your brain. It was like a long time ago that I studied that. And a lot of what I learned has been like very much shrunk. And without going off on a tangent, something that I do not like is the vocal control of people for non useful purposes. So I don't like sometimes observing in schools women overusing tonal like discrepancies, and it goes to neuroscience. The way your brain um, cells like proliferate has to do with your vocal. I'm like using my hands. So something that I do not like is as an observer, when I see that the subject matter, and it's funny because it's a form of control, right? So it sounds like I'm criticizing, but it's to help people understand how easy it is to do and why they are so reactive or responsive to it has to do with the fact that people learn to follow uh, the people whose tones sound different. So, a criticism that I have is when teachers have watered down material and they're overusing their voice. You use your voice to help someone remember. And a lot of times, those people can go into other fields and they do really well. And the only reason why they do really well is because for years and years and years and years, they controlled classrooms. You're controlling people. You're keeping people's behavior within a range. You're asking them to do something that they do not want to do, which is to learn. Um, so anyway, so I realized that I may have some type of aphasia, and it may just be a genetic reason. Um, or it may be like trauma based, where I was confusing uh, organizational psychology. And when you look linguistically at uh, where organization is used, the World Health Organization, nonprofits, nonprofit NGO, non governmental organization, right? So there's a very finite use of the word organization. However, within most of the literature that I've read, um, which would go into like a literature review, it's always been biology, uh, aware psychology. So, my understanding of organization, I made the mistake of putting like Maslow's hierarchy of needs in comparative biology, which isn't even organization, but it's broken apart, right? And then, something that was really interesting to me in evaluation was understanding, because you get the picture of it but not the math of like what IBM nodal organization is. And like that's not anything that was taught. It's just that for what software we used, there were trials for that. So data organization is just grouping things. So I realized that there was a mistake in the way that I was thinking about organization, because it's a very finite thing. So it's like I was trying to Meyer Briggs the world. And I don't know how that happened. But what's interesting is I have a working theory of logic, I'm sure, but that's an evaluation. Not all evaluation is merged with math because it doesn't need to be. Um, and I think it works. So, um, the reason why I'm going to upload this is it's because it's like kind of like a preponderance of mine and a philosophy of mine, and realizing, and like it was a very meaningful experience to write about wash and in my graduate school program, and to realize that just with like a little bit of help, like the people in Bangladesh who had companies, the government funding just a little bit of things, that all of a sudden there were these resources put in and these people could help themselves, right? But then unfortunately you compare to what happens in another continent, and it's known within, I guess, the international community that there are certain countries that hoard money. And I believe that within giving resources to people, that these behaviors should be looked at, right? So if one place was able to, you know, like create pipelines and like this buildings of places similar to like a Flava, Flava, Colombia, like um basically like a shanty town or ghetto, or it's like I don't even know how to describe what those places would be. But the point is that they had the people, even though that was their only like way to live, they were willing to do better, right? So within this world understanding, I understand it's not going to make sense to people that don't get it, but that's okay because you never had the mind to understand it, right? But in predicting behavior and predicting who gets help, I'm not saying don't help the world, don't give everybody the first steps. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that there's some places in society, if the world has this great vision of everybody having similar things in 2030, um, it just does seem that there are places in the world that have continually gotten funding or that money has disappeared, right? And they probably need the same things that these other countries have been trying to help themselves and have been using whatever resources that are given to them. And I do understand that, like, that's maybe why certain countries give outsourcing contracts more than other countries. Um, but yeah, so I, because my my writing disappeared, right? I have to claim my a thought process and whatever rudimentary right that I can, right? And I don't even think that I have time to go through all of this, but it's interesting because in psychology, like classroom organization, you just know that some people will lie to get a resource. Like children, I mean, I really haven't had that happen, but sometimes I, one reason why I don't engage in the world so much is just because it's just so dumb what's going on. So children sometimes will lie and they'll cry and they'll try to be like it's their toy and they deserve it and but what they learn how to lie, and they learn how to lie to see if the teacher gives them what it is that they want. And when people grow up, sometimes they'll do that with jobs, sometimes they'll do that with like romantic partners, but then something else that's happening is they're doing that with these concepts that have been so watered down that they don't even have value anymore. So I used to value, find it interesting, find famous people not really interesting, right? But it it was something that I did not want obtainable in society because it was a measure of success. Just like going to some schools was a measure of success and it was not arguable, right? And that doesn't occur anymore. So for me, like I know that I personally wouldn't want to go to a school where it would be questioned on my intelligence later on, right? Well, what happened is people constantly are trying to pull the bar of what they observe and what they want growing up to them when they get older. So, what happened is in the economy where there's inflation, these people that are CEOs realized that they make as much money as celebrities or even more. So, they tried to find a way to control them. I like do this like a leash, right? They tried to find a way to control them. But it wasn't about them doing this favor or them paying these people at corporate venues or whatever it was. What it is that they actually wanted is they actually wanted the transfer of celebrity to them. So that was the first step of that. And now it's gotten to a point where, in my opinion, I understand that people are so happy to make like money off of the internet and everything like that. $35,000 to me is like still something like that's still respectable, but like, and I've lived in economies where that wasn't obtainable. So in Florida, there's this big donut hole, right? In West Virginia, it's finally to a point where the generations of people understand how to interact with the economy again, right? So I really think that it wasn't too bright for a lot of entertainers, a lot of people to even want to be entertainers because you're not getting paid anything off of it. So instead of making $35,000, instead of finding your dreams and hoping for an endorsement deal and hoping to be famous forever, you should have worked a regular job. But what happened was is people took advantage of people's ignorance, and there's something that they wanted, right? Because in their minds are like, all these people know us, we should be so much richer, we should be so much more respected. There's always something that they wanted. They wanted to be invited to the UN, they wanted to testify in front of Congress, they wanted to know people, and they tried to buy in on the very last tier of value, which was completely incorrect, which was to tell these people that want to be singers and want to be actresses and want to do this and want to do that, that they should stay working at $35,000 funding themselves on their TikToks and everything else. No, that's not correct. If you actually, I mean, I may be completely wrong, But if you actually want it to be a singer, if you actually want it to be an actor, you need it to not take any payouts. And you needed to make sure that your check and your salary was where it needed to be. Because, again, what happened was these corporate people wondered, right? And they're consumers.